Yeah, I'm sorry. Please excuse me for my delay. Of course, I think I disconnected. Then again, I need to enter. So I'm really sorry, right? For about 10 minutes, of course, I have to. Don't worry, I will cover it up, right? Okay, just tell me, can you see the screen?
Yes, ma. Now it's okay. We can.
Yes, ma'am. Can you see the
Yes.
screen?
Yes, madam.
Right.
We do, ma.
So we'll start with the topic discourse. Right now, here, of course, what is discourse analysis? Before coming to analysis, we'll talk about the term discourse. Have you heard about this term, discourse? What do you mean by discourse? Have you heard about it? No. So discourse means it's the people communicating with each other, right? So discourse is people communicating with each other. So in which way we communicate? There are many ways.
We
So
can
basically,
write. No?
sorry?
We can speak and write.
We can speak, okay, spoken, no.
We can write a message or something
You
like
can
that.
write also. So the written form is also there, right? So there are two ways, spoken or written form. So when we say discourse, it can be any kind of a text, right? So the communication, this communication, when the people are communicating, it can be verbal or it can be non-verbal also. Or else it can be a mixture of both also. So what do you mean by non-verbal? Verbal, of course, it's not new thing for you. Non-verbal means?
It's gestures.
Body language.
Gestures.
Right, gestures. What else you can talk about?
And signs.
Right. Yes, right. So sometimes it can be verbal or sometimes it can be non-verbal or else it can be mixture of both also. So this may involve the speaker and the listener, or if it is spoken, or the writer and the reader if it is written form. So non-verbal communication means it includes gestures, as you said, it's correct, gestures, as well as suprasegmental features like pitch, intonation, pausing, right? So those things are also counted. But discourse can be understood without the non-verbal component as well, right? So without these gestures or pitch, intonation also, we can understand what you call the discourse. So for an example, if you take a written discourse, is only verbal and is understood by the reader, right? If it is a written one, the reader would understand it, right? So no need of gestures there. So we are not focusing on the spoken side there, but it's a written form. But still, it will convey a kind of a meaning to the reader, right? So written discourse is only a kind of a like the reader would understand. So discourse can be anything that is used for communication. So it can be either spoken or as it can be written. And it is recognized by the receiver as coherent. Coherent means a meaningful way, a connected connection is there, right? So if there is a relationship in the text or even dialogues or interviews, if it is a spoken form, right? It can be conversations, right? Okay. So when the receiver or the listener, if it is spoken, the listener is there. So the dialogue would be a kind of like meaningful thing for the listener if there is a kind of like relationship among the utterances. And if it is a written form, then the among the sentences, right? So if it is a written one, there can be sentences. No? So in a chunk, in a text, you may get a kind of like relationship or a kind of like coherence. You need to have this connectedness among, if suppose if you get a kind of like a paragraph, so each and every sentence needs to have a kind of a logical relationship. So then only whoever the reader would be able to get the meaning of. So it need not conform to rules. Of course, when it comes to written form, you may think that now we need to follow the rules. Of course, the grammatical rules, grammatical viewpoint, of course, there are some rules we need to adhere. So two sentences can occur next to each other in a text. But there should be a relationship between the two sentences. This is the most important thing, right? Coherence. So we need to have that relationship among the sentences if it is a written form. If it is a spoken one, there also we need to have a kind of, with the utterances, we need to have a relationship or the connectedness. So now we'll see that is called the discourse, right? So basically discourse means people communicating with each other in two forms, like spoken or written form. So this was like a kind of like a actually like subject or field related to psycholinguistic. It's a multidisciplinary actually. So you can't stick to one area like. So it can be related with sociolinguistic. It can be related with psycholinguistic, pragmatism, right? So when it comes to discourse analysis, now this term analysis means as the students who are studying what you call discourse analysis, what we do is we are trying to analyze the sentences, or if it is a spoken one, the dialogues. So discourse analysis examines how stretches of language considered in their full textual with the context, with the social and the psychological context. So then only it become meaningful and also unified for their users. So there are several scholars who have given some definitions for this. So I'm not going to talk about them. We'll move to the discourse analysis part directly, right? So when we analyze a kind of a discourse, it can be a kind of a like any spoken text or a written text, right? So discourse can be defined in three ways. First one, we call it language beyond the level of a sentence. Now, what do you mean by that? Can you think of it? Why they say it's language beyond the level of a sentence? Why they say like that? Hmm? Why do they say now this is discourse analysis means it's beyond the level of sentence? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we
So,
can hear you.
so when we define this, the first one is like language beyond the level of a sentence. What do you understand by that?
Implied
The
meaning,
sentence
madam?
we normally
Sorry?
in the sentence when we describe the sentence, we normally talk about subject, verb, and object like that, I think. But when we analyze, I think more than that, it goes beyond that. Advanced manner is described. I don't know how.
It's something, madam. The
I could-
reader or the reader
Yeah.
or the listener is not just listen or reading. So when the sentences is grasped, there are something there is something that beyond the meaning of the sentence with the with coherence and cohesion.
Right. Okay. Yes. So it's not merely a kind of a sentence, actually, what we analyze here. As the students are studying who are studying discourse analysis. Right now, for an example, let me start with this. You listen and tell me whether you could grasp any kind of a meaning related to this, right? Okay. the first sentence would be like this. La lives in Homagama. Right? Okay, first sentence is La lives in Homagama. Then the second one is, therefore the government will increase the salaries of public servants. Right? Therefore the government will increase the salaries of public servants. Third one would be, however, discourse is not just a string of sentences, one following the other. Now, when you hear this, suppose if it is a text like that, so can you make a kind of like understanding from this, whatever the things that you heard? First sentence is land lives in Homagama. Second is, therefore the government will increase the salaries of public servants. Third one, however, discourse is not just a string of sentences, one following the other.
No, madam, they are not interrelated.
No, yes, exactly. We can't get, of course, if you get the sentences isolated, like La lives in Homagama, you get a kind of a like understanding. There is a person known as Lal and he lives in Homagama. So it makes a sense. Then if you go by the second sentence also, without thinking of the discourse linking verbs or the discourse markers or the devices like therefore. So forget about that. Then the second sentence, like the government will increase the salaries of public servants. Again, you get a meaning, you get the understanding, but it's still, you have a doubt whether this is related to the previous sentence or not. And you, in your brains, in your minds, of course, you would try to grasp the meaning of this and try to have the connection of it also. So when you hear the third one, discourse is not just a string of sentences, one following the other. Again, you have another context like. So the situations are different, right? So this is because we cannot think of a common context here. We don't find the common context. So you say, you think, you can't get a clear picture of this paragraph or whatever the text. Isn't that so? Right? So this is what it says, language beyond the level of a sentence. Right? You don't find the common context here with my example. Right? It's not providing you a clear picture with the situation where these three sentences can be used together. Right? So they are, you think they don't have a logical relationship. Right? So in differing discourse as a collection of sentences which functions above the sentence level. So every time when we go or when we analyze this a text, we need to think about this relationship. So isolately, if you get the sentences, you may get a meaning. But when you get as a text, you need to have a relationship, a logical relationship among the sentences, which hinders in this example. So you can't say that it's only we are analyzing the sentence itself, right? So it's beyond the level of a sentence. Now another example is, just listen to this. There are two people. First, we may call the wife or the second one the husband, right? So wife says, tomorrow is Shani's birthday. Then the husband replies, I'll be visiting Nuarelia factory. Right? So here, you understand there would be a conversation, right? And also wife would give a kind of a like reminder, like tomorrow's Shani's birthday, saying like that. Then the husband's answer, I'll be visiting Norelia factory, right? So we can think of a common context where these two sentences occur, or utterances actually, right? So wife's utterance may be seen as a request or might be as a reminder to take part in the party, and the husband's, it's not accepting, it's a kind of a refusal or an excuse giving out, right? So in this interpretation, we consider the functional value here, right? Functional value attached to each utterance in the context. So otherwise the sentence, now tomorrow Shani's birthday, cannot function as a request. So in this discourse analysis, functional relationship is there, right? above the structural relation should be considered. Because the earlier one, of course, there you may have the relationship among the sentences in a text, right? If you get a kind of a paragraph, we will study them also. I think in your manual also you have a kind of an example. We'll do that, right? Later on we'll do it, right? Okay. So that means discourse can be defined as a language beyond the level of a sentence. So it's not merely a sentence that we are going to analyze, right? Apart from that, if it is a written form, we need to think about the logical relationship among the sentences in that text. And also, there are so many what do you call these cohesive devices or linking linking devices that we need to pay attention, right? Time sequences, like, okay. So from that only you will be able to get a clear picture of the written text. So likewise, even in the spoken form also the same, right? They would relate with the utterances. So the first point is that language beyond the level of a sentence. Then the second one is language behaviors linked to social practices. So social practices means now the people are the ones who are using the language. So it's a living thing. Language would be dynamic. It's not static, right? Static means it's not always the same like. So when we consider about our might be the mother tongue or whatever the mother language, or might be any other foreign language even, right? So time to time it will change actually. It will coin many new terms or many vocabulary, and also with the social practices, with the culture, right? So it differs. So language behaviors linked to social practices with their beliefs, with their sometimes customs and all, right? So they pay a kind of a very key terms related with this discourse analysis. And the third one is language as a system of thought. Now, this is like now when we study linguistic also the related with the scope of linguistics, we say one characteristic of linguistic means it's a system of systems, many systems, right? Basically, language it's related with thought actually, right? So if you think about the what you call the scope of linguistics, what is the first layer? What would be the first layer? You might have studied earlier. If you focus on the scope of linguistics, linguistic means studying languages in a scientific way now, right? Okay. So what would be the base of any language? What is the first layer? Hello? Can you hear me?
Phonology.
Phonology, right. Okay. Second layer?
Morphology.
Morphology, right. Okay. Phonology means related with sounds. Morphology?
Related with the letters and symbols and all.
Meaning. Okay. Relate, yes. Letters, syllables, right? Okay. Then what would be the third layer?
Syntax.
What would be?
Syntax and semantics.
Syntax.
Semantics comes as the fourth layer with that. Third
Grammatical.
layer?
Syntax.
Non-verbal communication.
Yeah, grammatical aspect. Yes, you have a nice name for that.
It's non-verbal communication.
No.
Syntactic.
Syntax,
Yes,
madam.
Pata? What did you say?
Syntax.
Syntax. Yes, it's syntax. Third layer is the syntax. One of you said grammatical aspect. Yes, it's correct. So when we consider about syntax, that means the structure, right? Grammar, right? But you may have thousands of sentences with relation to the grammar rules, but they might not be conveying any meaning. So when we talk about meaning, the fourth layer comes. What is it? Semantics. right? Okay. So the fourth layer is semantics. Then the fifth layer. What would be the fifth layer?
Pragmatics.
Pragmatics. Yes, correct. Good. So the pragmatics means the use of the language, right? The practical side. So there only we come across this our subject also discourse analysis, right? Okay. So the first layer in the scope of linguistics is the phonology, then the morphology, then third one is the syntax, fourth one is the semantics, and fifth one is the pragmatism. So pragmatism means the use of the language. So who use the language? People use the language. So when they use the language, the basic thing is their thoughts that would base on their thinking, right? So language as a system of thought. It that is the definition given as the third one. So that you are thinking, then only you will be able to produce a kind of a like utterance or a sentence if it is a written form. So basically your thoughts. So language as a system of thought. Then discourse analysis is usually defined as the analysis of language beyond the sentence. So they focus on the first one actually. And the analysis of discourse is typically concerned with the study of language in text. Text means the most probably like the written form and in conversation. So conversation means the it can be dialogue also, right? Okay, so it's the spoken form. So with these two, even a dialogue, if it is documented, we call it as text like, right? Okay, so when we analyze discourse, a kind of a text, there are several things that we need to think of. There are a few key terms like, right? Okay, so we'll see. The basics of text analysis. These three are the basic, actually like the key components in a text analysis. First one is the cohesion. Second one is the coherence. Third one is the speech events. So in your manual also we have those key terms, right? So we'll see what they are. Now, if we focus on the conversation analysis, can you see the screen?
No, madam, still not. We can see the screen, madam, but scrolling is yet.
Ah. What has happened now? Disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
ma'am.
but we can't see the screen, madam.
Wait, give me. Okay, can you see the screen again? Hope you can see the screen.
Yes,
Yeah, ma'am, can see.
Yeah. I'm sorry, time to time it's troubling me. And also, I'm very much close to a temper. So that also might be hindering at this time. I'm sorry. Right. Okay. So, basics of, if you talk about the basics of text analysis, we have to think of cohesion, coherence, and speech events, right? We'll see what they are. If it is a conversation, then we need to think of the turn taking, cooperative principles, edges, implicatures, background knowledge, schemas, and scripts. So these are subtopics related with conversation analysis. Right. Okay. So cohesion means the grammatical, or it can be called like a lexical relationship between the different elements of a text. So if you get, suppose if you get a kind of a like text, here we see the example, we'll try to analyze that, right? Okay. So the paragraph is like this. My father once bought a Lincoln convertible. He did it by saving every penny he could. That car would be worth a fortune nowadays. However, he sold it to help pay for my college education. Sometimes I think I would rather have the convertible. Now, in this paragraph, now suppose if this is a paragraph, right? Okay. So what would be the cohesive ties or cohesive devices? With relation to cohesion, there are some devices, right? There are some, we call it linking devices, cohesive ties, right? Okay, cohesive devices, we call it, right? Okay, so what would be? How can we analyze? Now we are going to analyze this
matching
paragraph,
pronouns.
right? Okay.
Matching pronouns.
You find here the pronouns, right? Okay. What would be the pronouns related to?
There, it's about the father, and it's a male pronoun.
Yes.
He.
Yes, it's a kind of a reference, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, my father. Then in the second sentence, we find he, the pronoun. Mhm. Again,
that car.
in the same sentence itself, we find again the pronoun he, and then
that car and it.
Right. Okay. So the car, it is referred with the pronoun it.
We solved it.
Right. Okay. And also the name is given convertible. Right. So here now if we are trying to analyze this text, right, with this grammatical aspect. That's why we say cohesion, right? Okay. So the lexical relationship only we are going to find out the grammatical relationship. So there are some ties, as I said, so the linking verbs or whatever these linking devices would be with the reference, you may have pronouns like he referred to father and it referred to car, whatever this convertible. So if it is in semantics, now semantics means the meaning. If you go by the meaning, there are some general terms also, right? Like money, time, right? So what are the words related to these two terms? If you take money,
Penny. Penny and fortune. Penny.
right. Yeah. There are so many, even verbs are also there and also nouns, right? So what are the verbs related to money, the term money?
Worth.
Bought.
Worth, madam.
Sold, you said.
Worth, madam. W-R-T-H.
Worth, fortune, right? Yes. Worth.
Sold.
Sold. Yes.
Pay.
Save.
Pay. Saving. Very good. Saving. Huh? Okay. So all these terms or the words, right? Okay. They are related to the term, key term, general term known as money. bought, saving, penny, worth, fortune, sold, pay. All these words are related with the general term money. Then if you think about the time,
Once.
Once.
once, right?
And
Nowadays.
Nowadays.
However, we'll keep that word aside for a few seconds, right? Okay. So if you
Sometime.
think about the
Nowadays.
Nowadays. Sometimes.
yeah. Sometimes, nowadays, once. So they are related with the time, right? Okay. Now you analyze. Now, how many sentences are there in this text?
5 sentences. Five.
Five sentences, right? Okay. So if you analyze from the tense point of view, what can you say about it?
Simple past plus
Yes.
simple past, and I would rather have
Simple past. Yeah. Okay. What else you can? Is that all? Is that all?
Modal verbs. Would, could.
Yes. How
Modal
about the
verbs.
last sentence?
Modals.
How about the last sentence?
Simple present tense, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So that means all four sentences at the very beginning, they are related with the past tense, simple past tense. But the final sentence related with the present tense, right? Okay. Then we'll come to this term, however. One of your colleagues stated that. So what can you say about that? How they have employed this term, however, in the text? What do you understand by that? The term, however. We call it
conjunction, madam.
assumption.
No, it's conjunction, madam. A bridge word.
A conjunction, you said, right? Okay. Yes, it's a connector, right? Yes, it's a connector, yeah. So what's the meaning that you get from that?
Justifying the previous section.
Right. Okay. Justifying the previous, whatever the actions or the happenings, right? What else you can think? The others also think?
It just modifies something more, but
Modifies?
or else elaborate something.
Okay.
It's
So
a
you are
text.
thinking about the writer's attitude? Are you?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Are you thinking about the writer's attitude?
Yes, ma'am. When we use that word, there it gives something more about the previous text.
The previous, right? Okay, previous things, whatever the things happened.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So this connector, however, is really important because it shows the writer's attitude also, and it marks the relationship of what follows to what went before. Right? Okay. So using, however, the term, however, the connector, the writer wants to convey that the previous things, whatever that happens, happenings, it would follow the present situation, right? So by saying that, however, he sold it to help pay for my college education. Sometimes I think I would rather have the convertible, right? So that means he is coming out, whoever the writer is using this connector, however, to mark the relationship of what follows to what went before. Right? Okay. So when the writer says, however, when you read the term, whatever this connector, however, there you get the idea. Now already he had sold this, and with this, the last sentence, of course, you get the idea that the writer wishes to have this car at present also, right? So he might be repenting, or sometimes he might be a little bit sad also by losing this car. But anyway, so he is coming out with this justification also. However, he sold it to pay for my college education, and he's thinking the writer's thinking comes out with this. Sometimes I think I would rather have the convert, right? So his personal attitude is also conveyed, right? So analysis of these cohesive links within a text. Now, what are these cohesive ties? It can be references, like grammatical references here with these pronouns or lexical relationship, right? And also there can be general connectors, right? Related to the term like money, right? And also time, related to time. We analyze some of the terms are there related with time. And also we analyzed with the whole context and came out with the tense also. You talk about the tense. You said the previous four sentences are related with the simple past, and the last one would be the simple present tense. Like so, and also at the end you analyze the connector. However, how it influenced the whole context also, right? And by thinking about the writer's attitudes also, right? So analysis of these cohesive links within a text gives us some insight into how writers structure what they want to say. Right? So as the students who are studying this discourse analysis, what we do is actually we are trying to interpret actually, right? By analyzing the text, we are trying the structure, actually the writer's structure here, we try to interpret it, right? So this connectedness in a text is not simply based on the connection between the words, actually. And there's another function which is called coherence. Now, cohesion means grammatically structure-wise or lexical relationship among whatever this text given. If it is a written one, then that's there, right? Okay, so that is the cohesion. But if you want to analyze the connectedness or the connection between in a text, simply it's not based on this connectedness actually, right? So beyond that, we need to analyze it. Now, in the next one, we'll see how it is related with spoken. So here, of course, if we focus on the same text, of course, my father bought a Lincoln convertible. The car driven by a police was red. That color doesn't suit her. She consists of 3 letters. However, a letter isn't as fast as a telephone call. Now here, this is a kind of an extension, right? Another text given. Here, so we may find many cohesive devices, right? But a text very hard to interpret. Why? There we don't find something. Yes, what is it? Now, you have an idea, no? Just tell me.
That is a language beyond the sentence, no?
Yes. Yeah, correct. And if you analyze those sentences, what can you tell?
There's no relationship between.
There is no relationship among the sentences. Is that? Yes. Right? But have you come across with many cohesive devices? Can we find the grammatical kind of like relationship?
That color, madam.
Right. Okay. They have used connectors also, but still we find it's very difficult to understand. And it's not difficult to understand. If you get each and every sentence, you may get an idea, but as a whole, you don't get a kind of a meaning. So what is lacking there? Cohesion is there, right? Grammatical relationship is there, but something is missing. What is that?
No coherence.
No coherence, right? There is no logical relationship. So who is making this coherence?
The writer.
The writer, right? So this factor, the coherence in a text, it will also help to understand the text more deeply, right? So here we don't find any coherence, but cohesion is there. Many cohesive devices, they have been employed, but we don't find any kind of a meaning why the logical connectedness in the text, why it's lacking coherence, right? Okay. So what do you mean by coherence then? Yes, coherence is the relationship which link the meanings of utterances or the sentences, right? So if you, now this is a very famous example. Now look at this. This is a
Madam,
dialogue.
excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Sorry for the interruption. Madam, could you give
Yeah.
me a few words for the discourse markers?
Discourse markers.
Yes, some few
There are
examples.
many. There are many. There are many
Is that
means like we have a
conjunction?
sub area also in this. Even when we talk about so, the word so is also kind of a discourse marker.
Is that that means all the connectors?
All the connectors, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, the connectors. Right? We in our syllabus also, so we will do it.
Okay.
And even if it is written form since, right? So that, right? All these are and but all these are there, right? Related with the discourse markers. Right. Okay. So with this coherence, now look at this conversation. It's not a conversation, actually a dialogue. Like two people are there. Her, that's the telephone scene, right? Then him, whoever the person is answering like this, I'm in the bath. Then her says, okay. So what can you say about this? How do you analyze this? This is a very, very simple dialogue. What can you say about this? Do you get a kind of a meaning?
Yes, madam. It's a dialogue and it has a meaning, but each and every sentence does not get a link. It has a coherence, that's it. So,
right. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, good. Anyone else? How do you understand this? What can you say about it?
There is coherence, but grammatical relationship is
Lacking. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get a me understanding, right? By listening to this dialogue, you may come out with your own interpretations. And you may say this might be kind of like two people, or it can be friends, it can be husband and wife, or it can be mother and son, right? Okay, a conversation like that. So you get an idea. There are certainly no cohesive ties. Can we find any grammatical, lexical relationship within this fragment? Like
no,
the Lincoln Convertible, that text, if you compare with that, can we find
ma'am.
any kind of cohesive devices of the ties here?
No, just the utterance and the response.
Can you hear me? Yes, but we find only the utterances or the whatever the responses, right? Okay, but we don't find any cohesive devices here, right? So without cohesive devices, but still it conveys as a kind of a meaning, right? It makes sense to us, right? There are certainly no cohesive ties within this text or fragment of discourse, but we see the meaning there, right? We get the meaning, right? That means we get the coherence, right? Okay. So we don't find cohesion, but we see the connectedness, right? Okay. So coherence means the connection of ideas at the idea level, right? Okay. Cohesion means the connection of ideas at the sentence or the structure level or grammar, we may say grammatical point, right? Am I clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here in this dialogue, even though they don't have any cohesive ties, you can understand it because the coherence is there. So every time, no need to have the cohesive devices or the cohesion is no needed to convey a kind of a meaning. So cohesion and wait, so with this coherence, it would be easy for us to interpret, right? So cohesion helps to create coherence. Cohesion does not entail coherence, right? So coherence can be made with or without cohesive devices also, right? So cohesion means actually the connection of ideas at the sentence level or the structure, right? So the coherence means the connection of ideas at the idea level. So cohesion helps to create coherence. And cohesion does not entail means it's not make necessary to have it, right? And coherence can be made with or without these cohesive devices also, like in the dialogue, whatever the telephone conversation. No, the dialogue related with the telephone. It's a very small, only 3 utterances are there. But still we get the meaning or the understanding. Why? Because it has the coherence, right? So when it comes to conversation analysis, the knowledge related to that, to interpret the conversation above, we need to possess the knowledge of the following. Speech events, speech acts, right? So there are 2 people, they have to utter speech events, right? Such as a conversation at a party, or might be kind of like in a restaurant, or might be in an office, or the situation. We call it context. We need to identify the context there. And any speech event comprises several components, like it can be like a debate, it can be a lecture, it can be an interview, or something like game or daily routine, right? So the conversations will be there. There are many like public speeches, right? So then again, we need to think about the interlocutors, the speaker and the hearer, right? The social distance, then interpersonal status, whoever the people whom you are dealing, their roles, social roles, age, then also like gender, So these things also we would consider when we analyze a kind of a conversation. Then also the topic might be very informal or sometimes might be formal, right? The topic also we would consider. Then the setting where the conversation occurs or the frame of it, situation where it occurs. Like. Then culturally specific factors, like the people who are with this the mini culture or might be the subculture, like, right? So the conversation analysis, the basic structure of a conversation, the turn taking would be taken place. Turn taking means one person, when one person is speaking, the other one would listen. And when the first person stops his utterance, right, then the listener would automatically get the sense, I need to speak like. So there he would take his turn. So when we analyze the conversation analysis, of course, turn taking, and there are some other features also that we need to study, right? So basically, turn taking would be there. The speaker and the hearer take turns in talking. One person speaks at one time and the other listens, and then they switch places. So they, in their roles, they switch, right? So this is a kind of a like small example. When A says hello, B would reply hi. So automatically the second utterance of A would be how are you? So B would say fine. So this is like a very rigid, I mean like stereotype, a kind of a dialogue. So there can be, when we consider about conversations, overlapping would be there, interruptions would be there, right? Okay. So before coming to, those are like related with this, what you call, conversation analysis. So focusing on the term coherence, this is very important. Coherence means it is related with people, right? The key to the concept of coherence is not simply which exists in the language. It's not something that which is existing in the language itself, but something which exists in people only, right? People are the ones who make sense of it. So it is people who make sense of what they read or what they hear, right? According to one's experience of the world. Now, earlier with this telephone case, of course, we can interpret. It can be a kind of like a situation happen in an office, or might be sometimes in a home, or might be, and also if you are thinking about the characters also, we may say might be two friends, or might be a mother and the son, or might be husband and wife, like that. So we are coming up with our interpretations. So according to our experience only, we would, of the world, experience of the world, one tried to interpret the text. So while interpreting a text, we may have to fill gaps to reach a conclusion. So sometimes it might not be the same. I mean, like it might not be the exact thing that you think would be related with this conversation. But still, you try to make kind of a like interpretation. Right? So in most casual conversations, this is evident. So in this telephone, whatever this dialogue also related with that, also the same thing happened. So there are like conversation, when we converse with the others, when we interact with the others, simply it's not only the knowledge related to the grammar, or I would say it's linguistic knowledge. It's not merely understanding the linguistic knowledge, right? So apart from linguistic knowledge, there is something else which makes the sense. So this knowledge can be stated as the coherence, right? Okay. So remember, when we say coherence, it is related with the people who make sense, right? And with our interpretation, with our experience only, we would come out with the interpretation, right? Okay. So that is related with the term coherence. Then again, coming back to speech events. So when we talk about the speech events, it can be like dialogues, right? What else? It can be a kind of interview, or it can be a discussion. Sometimes it can be speeches, right? Okay. So with this speech event, there are key terms that we need to identify. So in your, what you call this manual, of course, under speech events, there is a dialogue line. Can you go through it quickly? First dialogue. Were you able to find it? Can you hear me?
We do, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So try to analyze this requesting speech event. Yeah, right. Did you go through it? Now, how do you analyze it? What will help you to understand this context? Yes. How do you analyze this? Does it make a sense to you all, this dialogue? Yes?
Yes, ma'am, it's a dialogue and it has coherence. Also, it gets
Right, okay. You say there is a coherence, right? Okay.
yes.
What else?
The cohesion
Why do you
makes
say it?
that cohesion helps to make the coherence there.
Okay, cohesion helps to make the
Sometimes.
coherence, right?
And it overlaps at the end.
Right. What else can we do?
There's an interrupter in the last sentence, ma'am. The beginning of the sentence. Is that so? Is that an interlock? Madam is not there. Mhm.
I'm really sorry. As the first day, of course, there are so many distractions. Anyway, I have joined from my phone, so we'll see whether I would be able to carry out this until 8:30, right? Okay. Right. So let's see this dialogue and come up with your own interpretations, right? So tell me whatever the things that we had learned so far, how it would help you. And how do you interpret this speech event? Now, there are two people here, male and a female. So is the speech event is clear to you? What would be the context, the situation?
Normal conversation, ma'am. And at the end,
Okay,
it takes
for a
turn.
conversation.
It takes
Yes.
turn. At the end, it takes a turn.
At the end, it takes a turn.
Yeah.
Okay. Why you say like that?
Because they just generally speak, and the last line we had a torrential rain today, so they are going to, drag the conversation more and more with using that new topic.
Right. Okay. So, what do you think of the cohesion and the coherence, and how do you, yes, have they used any kind of cohesive devices? Mm?
No any cohesive ties and all, ma'am. No cohesive, but
Okay. The others also think and try to analyze it.
madam, is that an interrupter, madam? The last line, is that it, ma'am?
Okay, right. So we'll try to understand or analyze each and every utterance here, right? Okay.
Okay.
So basically, you understand this is a kind of a requesting speech event. Did you? I'm asking from the others also, right? So a requesting kind of an speech event. So here, when we analyze the utterances, first utterance, "Oh Mary, I'm glad you are here." So female says, "What's up?" Like, so it's a kind of a like what do you call, when two people meet? Of course, how do they react to each other? Right? Then the third utterance is again the first person says, "I can't get my computer to work." She says, "Is it broken?" So now the conversation flows, right? Yeah. So it progress, right? Then again, male says, "I don't think so. What's it doing? I don't know. I am useless with computers." "What kind is it?" "It's a Mac." "Do you use them?" "Yeah." "You have a minute?" "Sure." "Oh, great." Right? So with this requesting speech event, you try to get the, what you call, the meaning or the coherence. Connectedness is there, right? So, and you find hardly all, we don't find any kind of cohesive ties here. devices here, right? But still the coherence is there and you get the understanding, right? Okay. So this is a kind of like a small speech event. So when we think about the people, two people here, they take their own turns, right? Taking turns is a must in the conversation or in dialogue, right? So sometimes there can be overlaps and interruptions also. Now, when you think of a normal or casual conversation, just imagine that you had met one of your friends while you are on the street or when you are walking or when you are going to work, right? So when you converse with your friend, so you may automatically, we don't pay attention on them, right? Purposely we are not doing it, but automatically sometimes it may overlap. Some words might be overlap, right? Even though we say that we need to have turn taking, sometimes at the very same time both of you might be talking, right? And sometimes it will interrupt the first person's utterance also, right? So overlaps means when interlocutors they speak at the same time, right? So both take the turn. They are in a what do you call this, a typical conversation. It happens, right? Okay. So here in your manual, of course, they have given the example. A says, didn't you? No, why? But he must have been there by 2. Then again, B is also going to speak, right? And A says, yes, but you know where he was going. So he wanted to say, A wanted to complete his utterance, but B would, at the very same time, B also would talk. So that means it's overlapping, right? We say it's overlapping. So how do the interlocutor know when to take the turn? How do they know? How do the interlocutors know when to take the turn?
By listening, ma'am.
By listening to the speaker, right? Okay.
And responding appropriately.
Responding appropriately, yes. So when, as you said, by listening to the first speaker, right? The first speaker's utterance, where he ends up the utterance, we tell it a turn relevance place or TRP. We call it TRP. So the listener would understand the TRP point, right? That means turn relevations of the place. That means you are going to stop. Like now, the first speaker would say a kind of an utterance, and the listener would understand, all right, okay, now the first speaker is going to wind up his utterance. So there, that we call it TRP, right? Turn relevance place or turn related place. So the end of a phrase, it might be a phrase also, or it might be a clause or a sentence also. So sometimes, what do you mean by a phrase? What's a phrase?
A group of words.
Group of words. And a clause? CLAUSE, clause?
A group of words with give a full meaning to the word.
Group of words.
Which contain a verb.
A unit of organized words.
Yes, verb agreement, right? So it should show as a kind of a like tense also. Then only we would say it's a clause, like, right? Okay. So sometimes it can be a phrase or it can be a clause or it can be a sentence also. So with that, at the end turning point, we would understand. And sometimes with the falling intonation also, right? With your, we call intonation means What do you mean by intonation? That's one of the term in suprasegmental features.
The sound.
The way how you fall down, the what do you call the sound, right? Falling intonation. It can be a rising intonation also, opposite also, right? But here, when we are taking the turns, the listener would get the falling intonation, right? So there, the tone or the voice would be like softer, and also it would show, or yes, actually it would show the listener that the speaker is going to wind up the sentence or the utterance, not the sentence, actually the utterance, right? Okay, so the falling intonation and pausing also, right? Usually like 5 2 seconds, like when you have a pause with the speaker, there you may, the listener would understand, right, I need to talk, like that understanding would come, right? So likewise, overlapping and interruptions would taken place in a conversation, right? Here now there's another example given here. A and B are there. A says hello, then B says, oh, hello, how are you? A says again, very well, and you? B thanks. A says, that's good. So here, that's good, and you pause a little while, right? And again, A says, we had torrential rain today. So now when we go through or analyze this dialogue, there you would say, with this pausing, that's good, and zero 0.5, of course, would be seconds would be there. And again, A says, we had torrential rain today. So that means the first speaker is turning or switching to a new topic. Right. Someone is sharing the screen with the manual. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Can the others see it? Right. So, yeah, okay. So there we see that a new topic is initiated at the last, when you analyze the last sentence, right? So with 0.5 seconds pausing, of course, the first speaker itself, right? He himself would turn to a new topic. So we may get a kind of a like overlapping as well as interruptions in a conversation. Not only the turn taking, there can be overlaps also, interruptions also, right? Okay. Then the next key term related with conversation analysis is the pauses or the pause fillers. We call them pause fillers also. So to keep the term and to imply to the other that the current speaker has more to say. If you want to say some more, if you want to talk more, there also you would have a pause. So there, with that, we fill the pauses. So we call it pause fillers. So for an example, X and Y are there. If you analyze it, okay, I will give you time, 1 minute. Go through it and tell me how does it take place. Okay. Yes. What can you say about it? How do you analyze it? Yes. Where can you find the pauses, fill pauses? Can you find it with this X and Y dialogue?
Well,
Okay. So first X says, well, that film really wasn't what he was good at. Then X says again, I mean his other, yeah, right? His later films were much more, really more in a romantic style. And that was more what he was, best at doing. Then Y says, so when did he make that one? Right? So when Y, whoever the listener is speaking, is taking his turn, his utterance is clear. But X, when he is speaking, there you may find pauses, right? Okay, so this is natural in conversations, of course. If it is very authentic, then you have to have these gap fillers and all these what we call connectors, right? Actually, we say gap fillers. So we need to have them. That sounds like, or even sometimes you use some words. For an example, I mean, then also like, right? Even the word right? Okay. So they are like gap fillers. So when we think of natural speaking, the flow of speaking, it's not actually artificial. So having the fillers and in a conversation is really authentic, right? Because when you have casual conversations, uh, people think and then they recall, right? So thereby actually they recall. So they are in your memory, you may try to get whatever the incidents happening and recall it. So therefore, you may take time to utter the words or utter the sentence utterances, right? So pauses or gap fillers are really, really natural in authentic conversations, right? Okay, so here we find these pauses or pause fillers in conversations. Right. Then we'll move to the next one. Next one is the actually cooperative principles. This is like when we talk about conversation analysis, the main area is this cooperative principles. But today I'm not going to do it because we need to have a kind of like little bit of time for that. Right? There are four maxims that we need to discuss because of with some examples we need to do. So today I'm skipping this area, the cooperative principles, right? Then I will move to the next topic. what set you have? Conversation hedges, no? Is that the topic you have in the manual?
Yes, ma'am.
No?
Yes, yes.
Right. So hedges is also a key term in conversation analysis. If someone can share the screen, of course, that would be a great help for me also. Please do. Right. So hedges can be defined as words or phrases used to indicate that we are not really sure that what we are saying and is sufficiently correct or complete. So we can use like the words like sort of, kind of as hedges in the accuracy of our statements, or else as in what do you call this? When we say hedges, right? It's the kind of like words or phrases that we use in order to make the statement clear, right? So if we say his hair was kind of long, so the speaker is not sure whether it is long or short, but it seems to be like long. So therefore, the speaker would use this phrase, kind of. So it's a hedge. Am I clear? Am I clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then another example is the book cover is sort of yellow rather than it is yellow. So sort of yellow. So when you use sort of, so it's not quite sure, like, right? So it would be a little bit closer to yellow like, right? It's not yellow actually, but it's closer to yellow like, sort of, when you say sort of. So those are like, we call them hedges, right? Sort of or kind of like. Then implicators. Right. Implicators means it's an additional meaning conveyed by a speaker adhering to the cooperative principles. Now, you need to understand the cooperative principles in order to identify these implicators also, right? So, with these maxims, 4 maxims are there. When you have a conversation, there are 4 things that we need to follow, like, right? So, those are known as principles, right? So next day I will explain them. So implicators are also going along with that, right? Okay. Then background knowledge. Background knowledge is an information that is not in use for memory by a reader to understand the text. So for an example, like it's understanding the situation or the context. Now for an example, if you say, John was in his way to school last Friday. He was about the maths lesson. Last week, he had been unable to control the class. It was unfair of the maths teacher to leave him in. After all, it is not a normal part of a janitor's duties. So now, when you go through these 3 sentences, how do you understand it? And what would be your interpretations? How do you build up your interpretation? Think. Okay. Yes, what can we say about this person? Now the first sentence start with like this. Last week he had been unable to control the class. It was unfair of the maths teacher to leave him in. After all, it is not a normal part of a janitor's duty. So here we are talking about a person known as John, right? So what can you say about him?
John is a janitor, ma'am.
John is a janitor. Okay. Others, that also can be an assumption. Other than that, so whom do you think about the writer? Who is the writer? Who would be this John actually? Others think? Is he a maths master or is he a schoolboy or who else? Now one said janitor, right? So what do you think? The others?
John is probably a schoolboy.
You think that John might be a schoolboy, right? Okay, what made you to think like that? Why do you say that this John might be a schoolboy? You may be correct, but why you think like that? Tell me your thinking. It's okay, perfectly all right. The others also tell me. Hmm? Am I teaching only to two people? Here we have like 73 like now. Yes, give me 3, 4 minutes. After that, I will wind up. Can someone tell me again another answer? Your justification I need.
John is a math teacher because
Are you
here, yes, here mentioned that he had been unable to control the class.
Last week he had been unable to control the class. So there you
Yes.
think John is the maths teacher in the class, right? Okay, good attempt. We'll see. Now, anyone else?
The way to school refers that he's a schoolboy.
Sorry,
Way
Bata?
to school.
Way to
John,
school. Good sentence.
school.
John was in his way to school last Friday. So from that you thought John is a schoolboy. Right, okay. Anyone else? The one who said this might be the janitor? Yes, how do you find it? What's your argument, Pata? Someone gave me the answer, janitor.
Ma'am, from the
Yeah.
first sentence, they introduced John, and thereafter
Mm.
they are using the pronoun he.
Mm.
And After all, at the very last lap, he's telling it's not the normal part of a janitor's duty.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the assumption like that.
Right, okay, right, good. So let's see. Now, it's good, really good. It shows your thinking, Puta. Now, when you analyze a kind of a text, of course, you need to think aloud also, and also you need to analyze each and every sentences without coming to a kind of a conclusion or an assumption, rather than reading the last sentence, right? Okay. So at the very beginning, of course, we may think when you hear the first sentence, John was in his way to school last Friday. So our schema, in our what do you call, in our brain, we have some schemas, concepts are there, right? So according to that, when you hear the word school itself, we think, all right, this might be a schoolboy, right? So most people who are asked to read these sentences, they come out with this answer. John is probably a schoolboy, they say, right? So this piece of information is not directly stated in the text, and it must be an inference also, right? So other inferences, now we need to go for the other inferences also. Without going through only the first sentence itself, we need to go to the other sentences and see, right? And also when you go to the other sentence, John is walking, or that he is on his way to the school. He was about the maths lesson, right? So when you hear the maths lesson, and also when you hear the third sentence, last week he had been unable to control. So when you hear the term or the word control, you think, all right, okay, this might be a maths teacher, right? So the interesting part is when you go for the next sentence, it was unfair of the maths teacher to leave him in. Again, you have a doubt. Now, it says it was unfair of the maths teacher to leave him in. So him is another person, then maths teacher is another person. Then John is not a maths teacher. Again, you derive your interpretation from the schoolboy to the maths teacher, and from maths teacher also you derive. Now, when you go to the last sentence, when you read the last sentence, after all, it's not a normal part of a janitor's duty, right? After all, it's not a normal part of a janitor's duty. So suddenly here, John reverts to his schoolboy status, and the teacher inference is abandoned. That is also given up. The final sentence of this text contains the most surprise. After all, it's not a normal part of a janitor's duty. When you hear this sentence, or actually the sentence, your thought might be different, right? So this type of a text and the manner of presentation here, right? One sentence at a time is, if you take one sentence at a time, it's artificial, because if you want to get a kind of a coherence, you need to read all the sentence in the text. Yet you don't get a good interpretation, right? So in order to build up your interpretation, we need to go through with our schemas also, right? So when we are building interpretations of what we read by using these information, then is actually in the words on the page, right? So that is, we actually create what the text is about based on our experience, and also what happens in the life itself, also world itself also. So in attempting to describe this incident, we use the concept of schema. Schema means actually, it's a general term for conversation knowledge structure, which exists in our memory. Now, suppose if it is a supermarket, you get an idea. right? So with that brand or whatever the name also, if you get Cargill's or whatever the food city, so there are again you get a lot of images as well as you get the what you call inside the supermarket how the all these food items are being kept and all, right? So how you enter the entrance, you get. So these are like when you say supermarket, you get the idea in your memory. How do you get that? With the experience of your world, right? Okay, so with this schema, only we would be able to interpret, right? So with the now background is that background knowledge we need to get. So this example, that means John's example, provides us with some insight into the built-in interpretations of what we read by using a lot than is presented in the words on the page itself. So this is what the text is about, and based on our expectations of happens, right? So with our experience related to world, we get the schemas, right? Okay. So the time is like 8:30. It's almost like to 8:29, right? Okay. So I know most of you might be waiting to leave. Today, for the time being, of course, I will wind up. And next day, I will start with principles of conversation analysis, the maxims theory, right? With with more examples, we'll try to understand it. And then we'll move to the other subtopics in the unit. Okay. So far, am I clear to you whatever the things that we have discussed in this session? I know there were many a time, of course, we had interruptions and distractions. I'm really, really
Yes,
sorry
madam.
for
Excuse me, madam, what is John? John here is the janitor,
janitor means who is a janitor?
the cleaner.
Cleaner, yeah.
He's the cleaner, right?
Yes, cleaner.
Okay.
How do we interpret it? How do we understand it?
From the last line.
From the last line, yes. He says, after all, it's not a normal part of a janitor's duties.
Yes, ma'am, got it.
Right? From that only, that's why I said when we are analyzing a text, we need to go through all the sentences. And sometimes that's what we are trying to get the background knowledge, right? So we come out with our assumptions or interpretations. So how do we come out with our interpretations? With our schemas only. Schemas means the experience through the experience of the world, what we have gained. So it's there in our memory, right? So when you read the last sentence only, after all, it's not a normal part of a janitor's duties. The other writer says like this. From that only you understand, right, John is not a schoolboy, not a teacher, maths teacher, but he is the janitor. Right? Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So others also, if you have any doubts, please ask me. Is it clear? Of course, we did only few topics since it is like the first day. I didn't want to put you into deep end. So only few topics only we dealt. Hope it's clear. And if you have any doubts, yes. Any clarifications?
It's clear, madam. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Okay. So then I will wind up. Next day, we'll start with cooperative principles, right? It's also in the first unit itself. We'll do that. Right. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have any kind of a note for you because in the manual itself, it gives you a kind of a note. And if possible, have you got this book, A Guide to University Students? Have they sent from the centers?
Yes, we've been sent that too, ma'am.
You have got it. So go through it with first topic, discourse analysis, what is discourse and all. It's sometimes it might feel you a little bit bored to read all these, but anyway, it will help you, right? Okay, so please go through the first unit also there. Read it. So other than that, I don't think that you need a note for this because since you have the manual. Apart from that, if there are any kind of like activities, I will send you, right? Okay, so while doing the session itself, I can send it to you, right? Okay, so then if you don't have any other doubts and all, he will wind up.